Carissa Collins hit the pavement with a sharp cry as her ankle twisted beneath her, the heel of her sandal snapping in two just outside the glittering entrance of the Solara Oceanfront Resort. "Are you kidding me?" she muttered through clenched teeth, clutching her ankle as pain radiated up her leg. Her suitcase rolled a few feet ahead, abandoned, and her oversized sunglasses slid down the bridge of her nose. A gust of tropical wind blew her long, dark hair into her face. She brushed it away, blinking up at the sun and directly into a shadow. "Are you okay?" a deep voice asked, calm but urgent. She looked up, squinting. A man knelt beside her. Tall, tan, with hair that looked like it had been kissed by the sun and eyes too sharp to belong to a tourist. He wore a crisp white button-down, sleeves rolled, and expensive-looking loafers that somehow didn't have a speck of sand on them. "I think I twisted it," she said, wincing as she tried to move. "Don't stay still," he said firmly. "Let me help you." Before she could argue, he lifted her effortlessly into his arms. Carissa's mouth opened in protest, but the warmth of his chest and the sudden rush of being swept off her feet literally shut her right up. "You really don't have to carry me," she said, heat crawling up her neck. "You were sitting on the pavement." "That's not exactly five-star service," he replied, walking toward the resort doors like he owned the place. "Thanks, but I'm sure someone inside can help," she started. "I'm already helping," he said smoothly. "I've got you." Inside, the cool marble lobby was a stark contrast to the heat outside. The staff instantly straightened when they saw him. "Mr. Thorne," a concierge said, rushing over, eyes wide. "Do you want me to call the in-house medic?" Carissa's eyebrows shot up. "Mr. Thorne," the man holding her nodded. "Yes, and get a room ready." "She's staying here." "I am?" she asked, startled. "You are now," he said, his eyes locking with hers. A staff member brought over a wheelchair and he gently lowered her into it. "You need to keep weight off it for now." She blinked, trying to catch up. "Wait, hold on." "Who are you?" He crouched in front of her, one hand resting on the armrest beside hers. "Brayden Thorne, I own the resort." "Oh," she breathed, dumbfounded. "And you are, Carissa?" "Carissa Collins," she said, cheeks still flushed. "Well, Carissa Collins," he said with a slow grin, "you're in good hands." By the time the in-house medic wrapped her ankle and gave her ice, Carissa was tucked into a plush suite overlooking the ocean. She sat on the couch, one leg propped up, staring out at the endless blue, trying to process what just happened. There was a soft knock, then the door opened. Brayden walked in, holding a plate with a chocolate-covered strawberry and a glass of champagne. "You didn't have to do all this," she said, watching him set the plate down beside her. "I didn't have to, I wanted to," he said. "You're not just some guest, you're a surprise." She gave him a look. "A surprise? Most women scream when they see me coming. You didn't." "You were too busy yelling at the pavement." That made her laugh, and he looked oddly satisfied with the sound. "I'm serious," he added, sitting on the edge of the coffee table. "You didn't care who I was, that's rare." "I didn't know who you were," she pointed out. "Still don't really." "Just that you apparently own this place," he shrugged. "Among other things." "Of course," she muttered. "You look like the type who owns other things." He quirked a brow. "What does that mean?" She gestured vaguely at him. "The shoes, the perfect hair." "The entire lobby basically bowed when you walked in," he chuckled. "That's not true." "Yes, it is. You're like every billionaire romance fantasy rolled into one." "Good thing I'm real," he said, leaning closer. She swallowed. "You're really a billionaire," he nodded. "Guilty?" Carissa stared at him, then shook her head. "You're serious." "I'm also seriously glad I walked outside when I did," he said softly. The room went quiet. The air between them shifted, charged. She looked away, suddenly flustered. "So, what happens now?" "I didn't plan to spend my vacation this way." "Well," he said, standing, "you're here, you're injured, and I'm not letting you limp around alone, so unless you object, I'll be your personal tour guide until that ankle heals." "You don't even know me," she said, stunned. "I'm a quick learner," he said with a smile. "Besides, I have a feeling you'll be worth it." That evening, Carissa sat on the private terrace of her suite, watching the waves glow under the setting sun. Her ankle was throbbing less, and the champagne had made her limbs pleasantly warm. There was a knock again. Brayden stood at the door with a box in his hand. "What is that?" she asked, eyeing it suspiciously. He stepped inside and opened it. Inside was a pair of flat designer sandals, soft leather and delicate straps. "I figured heels are off the table for now," he said. "These should be easier on your ankle." Her eyes widened. "You bought me shoes," he smiled. "I buy lots of things. These are just the first for you." She stared at the shoes, then at him. "Why are you being so nice to me?" He met her gaze. "Because I want to." She didn't know what to say. "Dinner tomorrow?" he asked, more serious now. "Let me take you somewhere special, just us." Carissa hesitated, but only for a second. "Okay." His grin was slow, confident. "Good, I'll pick you up at 7, no heels required." He turned to go, but paused in the doorway. "You really don't know what you've started, do you?" She blinked. "What do you mean?" He looked at her, something unreadable in his eyes. "You twisted your ankle. And I think you twisted something else in me too." Then he was gone, leaving her heart racing faster than it had all day. Carissa adjusted the strap of the sandal Brayden had given her, her fingers trembling slightly, not from pain, but from the anticipation that had been building since he'd left her suite last night. When the knock came precisely at 7, she opened the door to find him standing there in a midnight blue shirt rolled to his forearms, no tie, and a quiet intensity in his eyes that sent a ripple through her chest. "I hope you're hungry," he said, offering his hand. "Depends," she said, slipping her fingers into his. "Did you cook? If I did, you'd be chewing through fire alarms and regrets. No, I've got something better." He led her not to the hotel's restaurant, but past the pool deck, down a private path illuminated by lanterns nestled in the sand. As they walked, the distant rhythm of the ocean grew louder until they rounded a bend and Carissa stopped. A table for two was set right on the beach, tucked under a canopy of linen and soft string lights. The waves rolled just feet away. A chef in a crisp white coat stood beside a grill, and a violinist was seated nearby playing something low and haunting. "Okay," she said, breath catching. "You win." Brayden pulled out her chair. "It's not a competition." "It is now," he laughed, the sound quieter than before, as if the beach had softened even him. They dined on grilled sea bass with mango salsa, roasted vegetables, and some kind of chilled soup she couldn't pronounce but finished anyway. The wine was crisp, perfect. Everything was perfect, except for the way she couldn't stop watching him. "So," she said, swirling the last of her wine, "do you always rescue women off the pavement and then take them to candlelit beach dinners?" He leaned back, eyes steady on hers. "No, just me. I haven't done anything like this in a long time." She studied him. "Why not?" His gaze shifted slightly, as if weighing the value of honesty. "Because it's easier not to feel anything when you keep things simple. People think money makes you invincible. It doesn't. It just makes your walls taller." She didn't look away. "And you built those walls for a reason." Something flickered in his expression. "I was engaged once, years ago. She didn't leave me for someone else. She left because she didn't want the life that came with me, said I was too much. Too watched, too gone all the time." Carissa didn't speak for a moment. The breeze tugged her hair gently as she processed what he'd shared. "I'm not sure what's more surprising," she said, "that you were engaged, or that you just told me that." "I don't say it often," he admitted. "But you asked." She nodded slowly, then tilted her head. "Is that why you're doing this? Dinner, shoes, 5-star everything, trying to prove you're not too much?" His mouth twisted faintly, not quite a smile, not quite pain. "No. I'm trying to prove I can still feel something real." The violinist shifted into a softer tune. Carissa looked out at the horizon, then back at him. "Do you," she asked quietly, "feel something?" He didn't hesitate. "Yes." She knew better than to trust declarations from men she barely knew, but there was no hesitation in his eyes either, just a quiet certainty that made her heart squeeze. "Come on," he said, standing. "You've been sitting too long." She arched a brow. "You realize I'm injured, right?" "I'm not asking you to run laps," he said, offering his hand again. "Just a walk, slowly." She took it, her fingers curling around his, warm and sure. They walked along the edge of the shoreline, her steps cautious, his pace matched to hers. The sand cooled beneath their feet as the night deepened. "I was supposed to be here with my cousin," she said after a while. "Girls' trip. She got food poisoning the night before our flight and bailed. I almost canceled." "Why didn't you?" she shrugged. "I needed to get away. Life's been heavy." He glanced at her. "Want to talk about it?" She hesitated, then nodded. "My mom passed 8 months ago. It was cancer, fast, brutal. I've been trying to hold everything together since. But I think I cracked somewhere along the way." Brayden didn't speak, just tightened his grip on her hand. "I was her caretaker, gave up a lot. I don't regret it, but when she was gone, there was just silence and bills, and no one asking how I was." "I'm asking," he said, his voice low. "Right now." She stopped walking. He turned to face her, the moonlight catching the lines of his face, softer now, less guarded. "Don't fall for me, Brayden," she said, trying to joke but not quite managing it. "I'm a mess in borrowed shoes." "I'm not borrowing anything," he said. "I'm giving. And I don't fall easily," she swallowed. "I think I'm scared of this, so am I." She didn't expect that. He stepped closer, slowly now, like he didn't want to spook her. "But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you." Her breath caught again, different this time, deeper. "I don't know how long I'm even staying here," she said. "What happens when I leave?" "Then I go with you," he said simply. She laughed, but it cracked a little. "You can't just follow people home." "No," he said, "but I can ask you if you'd let me be part of your world, not just this resort." "Not just this week." Her heart thudded. "I don't know yet," she whispered. He nodded. "I can work with that." They lingered there, waves rolling close to their feet, silence stretching comfortably between them. For the first time in months, Carissa wasn't thinking about the ache of loss or the weight of survival. Just the warmth at her side. The man who'd caught her when she wasn't expecting to fall. When they returned to the suite, he stopped at the threshold. "I'll see you tomorrow," he said. "I haven't said yes to anything else yet." His gaze held hers. "You don't have to. I'm already choosing you." Then he left, the door closing softly behind him, and Carissa stood there barefoot, heart racing in a way that had nothing to do with pain. Carissa stared at the note Brayden had left on her breakfast tray the next morning, written in looping, confident handwriting, "Wear something comfortable. I'll handle the rest." She set the card down, eyes narrowing. What does the rest even mean? Still, curiosity tugged at her stronger than doubt. She slid into a breezy cotton jumpsuit, the soft sandals from 2 nights ago, and pulled her hair into a loose braid. Her ankle was healing, tender but manageable. She could walk now carefully. At exactly 9, there was a knock. Brayden stood there with sunglasses pushed up into his sun-streaked hair and a duffel slung over his shoulder. A black SUV idled behind him. "We're going off property today," he said. "Hope you don't mind a little adventure." "Define little," she said, stepping outside. He offered his arm, and they walked slowly to the vehicle. "I figured you've seen enough white tablecloths and candlelight for a while. Thought I'd show you something real." The drive took them inland, away from the ocean breeze and into the heart of the island. The landscape shifted from polished luxury to vibrant color, sun-faded houses, stray goats grazing on the roadside, bursts of bougainvillea climbing stone walls. Carissa leaned forward, watching it all with wide eyes. "Where are we going?" she asked. "You'll see." When they pulled up to a weathered blue building with a crooked sign overhead that read, "Ileana's," Carissa raised her brows. "This doesn't look like a tourist spot." "It's not," Brayden said, already opening her door. "It's where I used to go when I needed to disappear." She followed him inside, where the scent of fried plantains and garlic hit her like a warm memory she didn't know she had. Inside, the room was small, crowded with mismatched chairs and a bar lined with locals drinking from chipped mugs. Behind the counter, a woman with silver-streaked braids turned, her face lit up. "Brayden Thorne, as I live and breathe." He grinned and walked over to hug her. "I was hoping you'd still be here." "I told you I'm not dying until someone else can cook better than me," Ileana said, giving him a once-over. Then she looked past him. "And who is this beauty?" "This is Carissa," he said, stepping aside. She needed a break from the resort. Ileana's eyes twinkled as she gave Carissa a measuring look. "You're the first woman I've seen him bring here. That alone earns you the house special." They sat at a table near the open windows, and Ileana brought over plates piled with jerk chicken, coconut rice, and grilled pineapple. Carissa's first bite made her close her eyes. "This is unreal," she said, reaching for her water. "I used to come here after meetings that went sideways," Brayden said, watching her. "Before everything got so big, Ileana wouldn't let me talk until I ate, said food fixed more than contracts ever could." "You really grew up around here," he nodded. "My dad was a mechanic. My mom worked in a hotel laundry. I got my first job sweeping sand out of guest rooms." She leaned in. "You never told me that. You never asked," he said. "Most people see the suits and assume I was born into it." Carissa rested her chin on her hand. "So what changed? One summer I met a guy who ran luxury charters. Yachts, private villas, exclusive tours. He said the only difference between guests and staff was access. I started asking questions. Then I started fixing problems, took every side job I could. Learned how the industry worked from the inside out." She shook her head slowly. "You built all this?" "I built the first piece. The rest came later." "And now you own the resort where I fell on my face," she said with a faint smile. He grinned. "Life's poetic like that." After lunch, they walked through a nearby market, the air thick with the scent of spice stalls and ripe fruit. Carissa paused at a vendor selling handmade bracelets, her fingers brushing over the woven bands. "Pick one," Brayden said. "I don't need anything." "I didn't ask if you did." She found a soft blue one with a silver charm shaped like a wave. As she reached for her wallet, Brayden handed the vendor cash and nodded once. Carissa opened her mouth, but he cut her off. "You're not a transaction to me," she looked at him carefully. "Then what am I?" He didn't answer right away. "Someone who makes me want to slow down." That evening, back at the resort, Carissa opened the door to her suite and froze. The entire room had been transformed. Dozens of candles flickered along the floor and windowsills, casting golden light across the polished wood. A single table stood in the center, set for two, and soft instrumental music played from somewhere unseen. The breeze carried the scent of sea salt and peony. Brayden appeared behind her, having followed her up quietly. "I wanted you to have something just for yourself." She turned. "Why?" "Because you've been carrying weight no one else sees," he said, voice low, "and someone should carry you for once." She stepped inside slowly, overwhelmed. "You don't have to keep doing things like this." "I know," he said, "but I want to, not because I'm trying to win you, because I already care about you and I don't want to pretend otherwise." Her throat tightened. "I don't know how to be with someone who doesn't need fixing." He reached out and gently took her hand. "Then just be with someone who sees you as whole." They sat at the table, and dinner arrived moments later: grilled scallops, lemon risotto, and a bottle of chilled rosé. No servers. No interruptions, just them. Halfway through the meal, Carissa looked up. "What happens when I go back to Chicago?" He set his fork down. "I come with you," she blinked. "Brayden, I'm not asking to move in. I'm not even asking for a promise. I'm saying I'll show up. I'll rent a place, I'll build something there if I have to, but I won't let you disappear into your world alone." Tears stung unexpectedly. "What if I'm not ready for all this? Then I'll wait, but I won't walk away." She stared at him, heart pounding. "I think I need you more than I want to admit." He reached across the table, fingers brushing hers. "Then don't admit it, just feel it." And for the first time in a very long time, she let herself. Carissa stood barefoot on the balcony, the hem of her robe fluttering against her calves as the wind picked up from the sea. The sky had shifted into a soft watercolor of lavender and coral, and the waves below caught the last of the sun's reflection like molten silver. Behind her, the door creaked open. "You didn't come back to bed," Brayden said, his voice still rough with sleep. She turned slightly. "I couldn't. It feels like the world might tip if I close my eyes again." He stepped beside her, his chest bare, sweatpants hanging low on his hips, a slight crease still on his cheek from the pillow. Is that a bad thing or a good thing? I haven't decided, she said, folding her arms. Everything in my life before this week was about control, schedules, survival, making sure nothing fell apart. He nodded, watching the horizon with her. And now I'm standing in a place I didn't plan to be, with a man I don't understand, and I'm terrified that if I let go, the ground won't catch me. Brayden reached for her hand. It will. I will. She looked at him then, really looked, and something unspoken passed between them, an acknowledgement that the feelings between them had grown too big to contain in passing glances or moonlit confessions. I can't stay here, she said finally. I can't hide behind palm trees and room service. I need to go back. I know, she hesitated. Will you actually come? He didn't hesitate. I already booked a flight. Tomorrow night, she blinked. You what? You said you weren't ready for promises, he said, leaning his forearm against the balcony railing. So I'm not making one, I'm just showing up where you are. She stared at him, something in her chest swelling too quickly to contain. You didn't even ask where I live. I did, he said. You talk in your sleep. Her jaw dropped. You're lying. A grin tugged at the corner of his mouth, but he kept his tone even. You said Roscoe Street, 3rd floor, don't forget the code is 429. I figured you either live there or you've been dreaming about robbing someone. She groaned into her hand. Unbelievable. I'm a good listener, he said. Even unconscious. That made her laugh, and for once it wasn't shadowed by anything else. No pain. No guilt. Just the messy, exhilarating feeling of falling this time, not physically, but into something terrifying and bright. Later that afternoon, they walked through the gardens behind the resort, where the orchids twisted high into the branches and the air smelled faintly of citrus and earth. Carissa moved more easily now, her step sure. You're quiet, Brayden said, brushing his fingers against hers. I've been thinking about what it'll be like when you see my world. I'm not expecting red carpets. There are no red carpets, she said. There's a walk-up with peeling paint and a view of a parking lot. There's a neighbor who plays the trumpet badly at 2 in the morning. And there's a coffee shop where I spend way too much time writing resumes for other people instead of myself. Brayden's gaze didn't waver. Sounds like a place worth knowing. She narrowed her eyes. You're not going to flinch when things aren't curated. I grew up on a mattress that sank in the middle and a fan that never worked. I don't flinch. She let that sit between them for a long moment. You really would give all this up? I'm not giving anything up, he said. I'm expanding the definition of home. They walked on in silence, the weight of his words settling inside her like something warm and anchoring. That night, she packed slowly, folding each item with care as if it might change what waited for her back in Chicago. Brayden didn't hover. He sat on the edge of the bed, tracing his thumb along the edge of a boarding pass. You know, there's a chance you'll hate it there, she said, not looking up. There's also a chance I won't, he said. New cities never scared me, people do. But not you. She zipped her suitcase and sat beside him. You'll be an outsider, I've been one before. And what if I'm not enough? She asked, voice lower now. He turned to her slowly. You are exactly enough. You've had to be so much for everyone else that you don't know what it's like to just be. With me, you don't have to fill in the silence. You don't need to impress, you just need to show up. She leaned into him. And what do you need? He answered without pause. You. The plane ride home was quiet. Brayden didn't sleep. He watched her instead, his elbow brushing hers every so often, his gaze anchored to the way her fingers tapped the armrest when she was nervous. When they stepped into her apartment, he looked around once, took in the faded couch and the second-hand bookshelf and the crooked picture frame above the kitchen doorway. Carissa braced herself for some kind of reaction. But all he said was, "It smells like cinnamon." I burn a lot of candles, she said. I used to bake, but I never remember to buy flour anymore. I'll get you some. She turned to him then, something fragile in her expression. You're really here. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. I told you I would be. She took his hand and led him to the window where the view was nothing but rooftops and a blinking billboard advertising car insurance. They stood there for a moment, side by side. "It's not the ocean," she said. "No," he agreed. "But it's the first place I've ever been where I felt like I arrived for the right reason." She looked up at him, and for the first time she didn't question what she saw there. There was no performance, no curated charm, just a man who had already made his choice. "I want you to stay," she said softly. He didn't answer with words. He just pulled her into his arms and kissed her without hesitation, without caution, as if the moment had been waiting for them all along. Weeks passed. Brayden adapted quickly. He found a co-working loft a few blocks away, started holding meetings in coffee shops, and learned the name of her trumpet-playing neighbor. Carissa started sleeping through the night again. She stopped jumping at the sound of her phone. She re-enrolled in a design course she'd dropped after her mother's diagnosis. One evening, she came home to find her apartment lit with soft yellow bulbs strung across the ceiling and a folded piece of paper on the counter. She opened it slowly. "Dinner's on the roof. Dress warm. Come when you're ready." She climbed the 3 flights to the rooftop, heart thudding. There, beneath a blanket of stars and a sky streaked with the glow of the city, stood Brayden, beside a small table with 2 bowls of her favorite pasta and a space heater humming nearby. When she reached him, he didn't speak right away. He just looked at her as if the entire skyline had shifted to make room for her. "I used to think love happened in big, perfect moments," he said. "But it turns out, it happens in takeout meals and broken elevators and walking beside someone even when you don't know exactly where they're going." She smiled, tears gathering at the corners of her eyes. "I fell for you the second you cursed at the pavement," he said. "And I've been falling ever since." She stepped into his arms. "You caught me once already. Then let me do it forever." They stood there, wrapped in the sound of the city and the warmth of each other, and for the first time in either of their lives, nothing was missing, no more waiting. No more wondering, just love, unexpected, undeniable, and finally, exactly where it belonged. The first snow of winter had begun to fall, swirling gently past the 3rd-floor windows of Carissa's apartment. She stood at the kitchen counter, rolling the sleeves of her sweater above her elbows as she finished frosting a batch of gingerbread cookies. The scent of cinnamon and clove hung warmly in the air, and the sound of jazz played low from the record player Brayden had surprised her with 2 weeks ago. A gift he claimed was for the ambience, though she suspected he just liked watching her dance while she baked. Behind her, Brayden crouched beside a large cardboard box, pulling out tangled strands of lights. "I don't understand how you've managed to accumulate 3 full bins of ornaments in a place this small." "They're from my mom," Carissa said, without turning around. "She collected one every year since before I was born. I kept the tradition going." He glanced up, his voice softer now. "Do you know where the next one will go?" She paused, icing bag in hand. "I was thinking right here," she said, pointing to the bare spot beside the window. "Front and center." He nodded, rising to stand beside her. "Then let's find the perfect one." An hour later, they stood outside in the slush of sidewalk puddles at the annual Uptown Holiday Market. Strings of golden bulbs crisscrossed above their heads as vendors offered everything from handmade scarves to mulled cider. Carissa's cheeks were pink from the cold, and Brayden's gloved hand remained wrapped around hers, as if letting go would knock the balance off the entire world. They stopped at a booth with hand-blown glass ornaments, each one delicate and luminous under the twinkling lights overhead. "This one," Carissa said, lifting a small globe with a silver feather suspended inside. "She used to say feathers meant someone was watching over you." Brayden studied it, then nodded. "It's yours." "Are you sure, Carissa?" he said. "I'd buy the whole stand if it meant getting to see your face light up like that again." They returned home with cold noses and full hearts. Brayden hung the feather ornament himself, positioning it exactly where she'd imagined. The tree was small, slightly crooked, but absolutely perfect. It glowed against the window, casting soft light across the room. Later that night, as they lay on the couch wrapped in a blanket, Carissa traced her fingers along the curve of his jaw. "You know," she said, "I used to think stability came from routines and plans. And now I think it comes from the people who make those routines worth waking up to." He turned his face slightly, kissing her palm. "I used to think love was about control. About making sure nothing slipped through the cracks." She tilted her head. "What changed? You did," he said. "You taught me that love isn't something you hold on to, it's something you grow into." She let her head rest on his chest, listening to the steady rhythm beneath her ear. "So what now?" "I'm opening an office here," he said. "Not a big one, just enough to keep a toe in the water." She sat up, startled. "You are?" "I signed the lease this morning," he said. "2 blocks from the coffee shop you pretend you only go to for the Wi-Fi." Her eyes widened. "Why didn't you say something?" "I wanted to be sure you were ready." "I'm ready," she whispered. "I want this, all of it, you in my world, me in yours, no more dividing lines." He cupped her cheek. "Then let's stop waiting." That weekend, on a quiet Sunday morning, they stood inside the tiny City Hall building nestled between a diner and a bookstore. Carissa wore a pale blue dress with sleeves that brushed her wrists, and Brayden wore nothing more elaborate than a gray tailored coat and the quiet, certain smile he'd worn since the moment he fell in love with her. There were no crowds, no flashbulbs. Just the two of them and a justice of the peace who read the vows with kind eyes and a steady voice. "I do," she said, eyes glistening. "I always have," Brayden replied, his voice low and unshaking. When they stepped outside, the snow had started again, light and fluttering like a blessing. Brayden pulled her close, their hands linked, rings glinting in the pale morning light. "I don't need a penthouse," she said. "I don't need a villa," he replied. "All I need is you," she whispered. He kissed her then on that quiet city sidewalk while the world spun gently on around them. In the months that followed, their life found a rhythm. Brayden's office flourished, modest, efficient, and filled with people who respected him not for his wealth, but for his vision. Carissa completed her design course and launched a boutique business helping small shops rebrand with fresh interiors and visuals. She started small, but her client list grew with each project. They made a home out of her apartment at first, then moved into a brownstone with creaky floors and a backyard that bloomed with wildflowers in the spring. The trumpet-playing neighbor sent them a plant as a housewarming gift. They let it die accidentally, then bought 5 more to compensate. They traveled together, never far, always purposefully. A weekend in the Berkshires, a drive to Michigan's coast. A return trip to the island where it all began, where they visited Ileana, who gifted them a recipe book tied with ribbon and said, "Bring me a grandbaby next time." They laughed, deflected, but the thought lingered. Eventually, they welcomed a daughter, a wide-eyed girl with her mother's fierce curiosity and her father's steady calm. They named her Liana, a nod to the woman who had fed them both when they were still learning how to feed hope. Love didn't make everything perfect. There were still sleepless nights, missed calls, and days when the world felt heavier than it should. But they carried it together, no longer strangers on opposite sides of a polished lobby or travelers on separate paths, but partners. Anchored, chosen, real. And through every season, every joy, every stumble, Brayden never let go of her hand, not once, not ever.